All right, let's talk about money. What if I told you that getting rich has almost nothing to do with your IQ and everything to do with your behavior? It's true. Today, we're diving into the psychology of money, and trust me, what's going on inside your head is the real secret to financial success.
So, let me ask you a question. Who do you think is more likely to end up a millionaire? A janitor, right? Never made a huge salary, or a top finance executive? Harvard MBA, the whole 9 yards. Now, the obvious answer, well, it might just be totally, completely wrong. Okay, so let's meet our two contenders. On the left, you've got Ronald Reed. He was a janitor, a gas station attendant, lived a really quiet, simple life. And on the right, Richard Fiscone. This guy was the real deal. Harvard-educated, a big-shot exec at Merrill Lynch, raking in millions. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it?
All right, let's see how this all actually played out. This is a story that's going to flip everything you think you know about money completely on its head.
And here is the absolute bombshell. Ronald Reed, the janitor, he died with an $8 million fortune. He left it all to charity. And the high-flying exec, Richard Fiscone, he went bankrupt. How in the world does that happen? It wasn't about being smart. It was all about behavior.
And this right here is the heart of it all. See, financial success isn't really a hard skill. It's a soft skill. It's all about how you act. Ronald Reed, he just lived a simple life and patiently invested his money for decades. Fiscone, on the other hand, he got into massive debt to pay for this super lavish lifestyle. And when the 2008 crisis hit, boom, wiped out. So you had one guy who mastered his behavior and another who was a master of finance. And you know what? Behavior won, hands down.
Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit more. Why is money so much about your mindset and not just, math? Well, it really all comes down to how our brains are wired.
You know, we all like to pretend we're these rational beings, making money decisions with spreadsheets and logic. But the truth? We're not. At all. Our choices are driven by our feelings, our personal stories, and all these weird biases we don't even know we have. Something that seems totally nuts to you might make perfect sense to me just because our experiences are completely different.
Think about it like this. If you lived through the Great Depression, you'd probably be super cautious with your money for the rest of your life, right? Even when the economy is booming. That experience is burned into your brain, and it's way more powerful than any advice you'd read in a finance book.
And this isn't just about everyday folks. Take a guy like Jesse Livermore. He was one of the most legendary stock traders of all time back in the early 1900s. A total genius. But he died completely broke. Why? Because he couldn't get a handle on his emotions. He couldn't manage risk. See, being a genius just wasn't enough. He was missing that behavioral piece.
All right, so we get the why now. Let's talk about the how. I'm going to give you 5 simple, practical rules to help you build that wealthy mindset we've been talking about. Okay, rule number 1. Compounding is actual magic. Seriously, the goal isn't to hit home runs every time and get insane returns. The real goal is to get pretty good returns that you can just keep getting year after year for a really, really long time. I mean, think about Warren Buffett. Most of his massive fortune was earned after he turned 50. His secret weapon wasn't some crazy intellect. It was just time.
And this chart, this shows you exactly what I'm talking about. Look at this. This is what happens if you just invest $200 a month. The first, 10 years, it's okay, it's steady. But then look what happens around year 15, year 20. The curve just goes vertical. That is compounding. That's when your money starts making its own money. It's all about time.
Rule number 2, and this one is huge. Your savings rate matters more than your income or your investment returns. I'll say that again. Building wealth isn't about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. You could have someone with a pretty average job but a high savings rate who ends up way wealthier than some high-flying doctor who spends every penny. Saving is what gives you control. It's your defense.
Okay, rule number 3. Plan on the plan not going according to plan. Yeah, you heard me right. Life is messy. It's full of surprises. So the most important part of your financial plan is planning for things to go wrong. And that's why an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months of living expenses in cash, is non-negotiable. That's the buffer that saves you from having to sell all your investments when things get tough.
All right, rule number 4 is all about balance. Avoid the extremes. Think of it like driving. If you're too conservative, you'll never get anywhere. But if you're too aggressive, you're going to crash and burn. The sweet spot is right in the middle. You want to be optimistic enough to invest for the future, but paranoid enough to survive the bumps in the road. That's what diversification is all about.
And last but not least, rule number 5. And this one is maybe the hardest because it's purely psychological. You have to define what enough means to you. Look, our entire world is basically a machine built to make you feel like you don't have enough. The hardest skill in finance is getting those goalposts to stop moving. That's the trap our executive Richard Fuscone fell into. He had plenty, but he risked it all chasing more. Knowing when you have enough is how you win the game. It lets you get off that endless hamster wheel.
Okay, that's a lot of theory. So how do you actually start doing this right now? I've got a super simple action plan to get you started on mastering your own money psychology.
Here are your first 3 steps. Step 1, just take a look. Spend 30 minutes tonight, that's it, and see where your money's actually going. Ask yourself, what's my story with money? Step 2, automate everything. This is the best behavioral finance hack there is. Set up automatic transfers to your savings and investments. Pay yourself first so you don't even have to think about it. And step 3, make a plan for that emergency fund. Figure out the number, your 3 to 6 months of expenses, and start chipping away at it. Seriously, these simple steps can change everything.
All right, as we start to wrap this up, I want to boil it all down to one single ultimate takeaway. The one thing you absolutely have to remember from all this.
If you walk away with just one thought, let it be this one. Building wealth is not an IQ test. It's a character test. It really just comes down to having the discipline to spend less than you make, the patience to let your investments grow over a long, long time, and the humility to know that you don't need to be a genius. You just need to let time work its magic.
Because at the end of the day, the real game of money isn't played on a spreadsheet. It's played right here, in your head. The biggest decisions you'll ever make about your finances have nothing to do with numbers and everything to do with psychology. So my question for you is, what's the first decision you're going to make?